COP29. It is the Youth Day. And it is also a pleasure just walking around, by the way. There are so many young people around. It is quite inspiring. And I'm very, very happy that we can pull off this session today at the International Standards Pavilion with the title Bridging Generations, Inclusive Innovation and Standards for Climate Action. We have heard many activities this week. We are in the second week of COP29, and we have heard that we urgently need to identify and intensify our efforts to address climate action. Efforts until now have been there, but we still need to continue everything that we are doing here and also have a long-term perspective. We need to collaborate, we need to be more inclusive, and we need to hear many different voices from many different parts of the world. The main topic of today is to hear the voices of the young. It is Youth Day at COP29, and that is why we have a very exquisite panel of very young professionals here that I'm going to introduce in a very brief second. Finance is a big topic of this COP, and we need to secure finance as a first step, but implementation is going to be the next step. And implementation is long-term. Implementation is at the ground level, it is local, and therefore we need everyone being included to implement climate action. There is a strong need for a balance for staying on top of ever-evolving technology curve, but also through the different actions that we intend to do, we need to hear the voices of the different backgrounds that are around. All these actions are here to prepare the world ahead, are here to prepare the future, and the future is obviously in the hands of the young people. And it is why I'm very pleased to introduce to you today our seasoned young professionals that we have here. I'm starting to my left, so your right, we have Tinotenda Hotzi. He is ISO Environmental Management Youth Leadership. Next, we have Ellie Lee. She's Manager, Smart Energy Association and IC Young Professional. We have then Aurora Audino. She is UNDP Biodiversity Finance Initiative Fellow and Youth for Climate Champion. And Shraddha Pandey, she's founder and project leader, Grassroots Energy Management Support GEMS. And at the very far right, the youngest of us all, Wolfram Zeitz. Wolfram is the Executive Secretary of IEC and ICRE, Conformity Assessment System. It's a huge pleasure and honor to have you on board. Welcome to you. I'm happy that you joined us today.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just start off with a little bit of a short introduction, or rather you will be able to introduce yourself in a sense that let's start with some basics. According to you, what are the main reasons why inclusivity is important for climate action solutions? And I would like to address this question to you, but also give you the opportunity to tell us a little bit, because we don't know you this well, who you are, what you're doing, and why in the work that you do as a young professional, inclusivity is important. And may I just start with you, Tino, please?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm with the ISO Youth Leadership Group, right? So what I can say is our work that we are currently doing, we are looking at we are looking at the transition of energy from the fossil fuels up to the cleaner energies. So what we are doing right now, I can't say that we are redefining what access to electricity is, but we're just conscientizing the world that when it comes to equitable access to electricity, it's not just about having 100% access to electricity, but it's about the amount and quality of energy that actually means something. So at this COP, where the world is deciding what to do when it comes to clean energies, we saw that it was important for the world to know that it's not just about having 100% access to electricity, but we actually have to increase the amount of energy that is available to the world. So taking into focus the Sustainable Development Goal number 7, which talks about ensuring access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. We saw that this was important and that the world needs to know about this.
And maybe just to get back to the question of inclusivity, in your exact work, how do you make sure that people like you are heard? How can you include the different voices?
Okay, so let me just start by this group, this youth leadership group. Okay, it includes about over 40 individuals from different countries, where we are taking notes, or we're taking information from each country, like the views of. So it's basically views from around the world that are being taken into account.
Excellent. Ellie, if I can move on to you. You are a newly elected young professional of the IEC, and congratulations to that. The same goes to you. The IEC is rather a technical organization, and we know that our organization has some diversity challenges ahead. Could you tell us a little bit about the importance of inclusivity? And I think we hear you well with your microphone does work. Inclusivity in the electrotechnical and electricity standard sector.
So should I go ahead and speak about it now?
Absolutely.
So,
it's all.
yeah, the mic wasn't working for a second. I was like, am I muted or something? But just to introduce myself, my name is Ellie Lee. I'm from South Korea. This year, it was a privilege for me to participate in the IEC Young Professional Program. It really exposes the young professionals to the standard world, but not just that. It exposes exposed us to understand the innovation, like how it should be safe, reliable, and also it should be beneficial for people and environment. And I think getting that exposure really sort of changed my perspective to think about innovation, because before I like being creative and thinking about innovation. You get excited about like ideas, but then like checking whether that's safe and that's reliable and whether that's good for people and environment, it's really important. So that sort of perspective got me through the program. Just to give a brief background about myself, I'm a civil engineer. I do city planning, and currently I'm in the smart city industries. So that's why I have high interest in environment issues and global warming and climate action, and also this program that you guys have organized is really good for the young professionals to get involved too, because like we can speak out, and this really helps us to provide the thoughts. And I think this is like sort of the inclusive innovation thoughts that we get to share.
Excellent, very good. Aurora, if I may ask you, first maybe introduce us a little bit who the UNDP is, what you do there, and why you chose to onboard that program.
Yes, first of all, thank you to you and the organizers for hosting this session on this day that is dedicated to youth. So my name is Aurora Udino, and as mentioned right now, I work as a fellow at UNDP. So this is something maybe similar to the Young Professional Program. The fellowship program is a program funded by the Italian government. I'm originally from Italy, and I got this great opportunity to be part of this program. There is an age limit to participate, but then you get the experience to actually travel, go abroad, get on a field anywhere in the world, in a UN agency. And I ended up being in Turkey with the Biodiversity Finance Initiative. You don't get to choose the place where you will go, so it's a match between your profile, your application, and the agency that have an open position. and then you do this experience. So we were talking about youth, and I guess it's also why I'm here, because I worked a lot on youth empowerment and youth participation in my life. I've always been a climate person, a person very passionate about climate and environmental protection and sustainability. And then I started to attend actually COP. My first COP was COP26. And since then, I was looking for multilateral experiences, discovering the climate policy world. And this is how then I started to look for other opportunities. And among the other opportunities that I've been part of, that are an example of youth inclusion and participation, there is the G7 Youth Experience, the Youth 7, which is the official engagement group of youth to the G7. I also took part as the Italian delegate at the Youth for Climate initiative in New York, which selected around 100 participants from all over the world to attend a sort of a summit in parallel to the UN General Assembly, where young people could really engage and discuss with policymakers. But why? I have to say, from a climate person, I became from a climate advocate, I became more of a youth advocate, and now I guess it's the two of them, because really, since I joined these more international discussions, I saw how youth are really considered as stakeholders. And also, I started to discover some tremendous data, like something like 50% of the world population is under the age of 30, but only 2.6% of our parliamentarians worldwide are actually under the age of 30. And you don't want to know the percentage of female representation in this, because it's very low. It's less than 1%. It's something like 0.6, 0.8%. So really, there is so much to do for a sustainable future, for climate action, and this really starts with the participation of young people in these policy-making spaces.
That is great. I have so many follow-up questions for you, but I think we've closed the round first. Thank you very much, Aurora. Shraddha, a little bit about yourself, your motivation, and why inclusivity matters.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Boris. It's wonderful to be here and listen to all my co-speakers and co-panelists. They have such beautiful and amazing stories. Hi, everybody. I'm Shraddha. I'm from India, and I'm here to try to understand how to bridge the divide between the discussions that are happening here at the COP and the rural communities back home. So I work at a non-profit called Grassroots Energy Management Support. It's called GEMS. And we try to transition rural communities in India from their current energy practices towards what the future can look like for them. Now that comes with two challenges for us. The first is accessibility, and the second is affordability. So both of these are something that we can work towards, and we can help understand those communities and try to help them come to conclusions and come to solutions on their own. Now the catch that comes here in such situations is that communities do not understand the concept of ideas like standards, that are discussions that are happening here, the policy decisions that are being made here, and how they have the impact on their lives back home. So what I'm trying to do here at least is bridge that gap and try to be inclusive of those communities and those divides, and see how those conversations and those discussions, which will have far-reaching implications on their life, they can be heard here, and the discussions that are being heard here can be translated in local languages for local communities to understand.
Well, excellent. Thank you very much, Shraddha. Wolfram, now the question is a little bit more, what is the status quo? We are, as you know, we are a technical organization, we are the IEC. We are developing standards and conformity assessment systems globally, and usually our contributors are experts. They have a high level of expertise, which means they have a high level of experience. They would tend to be older. They would tend to be, I would even say tend to be male, actually. And we end up with a bit of an issue with diversity and different views being heard. Now, could you maybe introduce, let me put it this way, introduce the problem a little bit, but also then explain how we can include further voices into international standards development and why we are here?
Sure, absolutely. And I actually like the picture we have here because talking about Youth Day, I'm actually the other side of the bridge. So, thanks for having me anyway, beside being the other side of the bridge. No, you're absolutely right, Boris. Currently, we are facing the situation that our expert groups, no matter if we talk about standardization or conformity assessment, is, sorry to say, and I include myself, is overaged. It is important that people working in these expert groups bring expertise to the table. But the expertise can be as diverse as the individuals contributing with that expertise. And that's important to be seen. That's important to be seen on the national level, who is bringing these experts into the system, as well as from us from the system level. Because yes, none of my panelists here might have been part of wind turbine development, PV component development since decades. None of them might know the technology inside out. However, standards and conformity assessment is not only about technology of the item itself, of the technology. It's also about being open-minded and bringing ideas to the table. And that's where I have to admit, we old agers are limited. We do things since decades, and we tend to do the things the same way like we did them for decades. And to get out of that box, we need fresh voices, we need fresh minds. So bringing expertise to the table does not always mean technology expertise. However, talking about technology, digitalization is one of the very important aspects for the near future. However, again, us old agers, we are typically not the first user and the native generation of using digital technology. Hence, there's another type of expertise young people can bring to the table. And that's also why the IEC and other standards development organizations like ISO, and also on the national level, we have these youth programs. Just one appeal to all the panelists here. The important thing is, when you're done with your program, when you run through the whole thing, stay engaged. That's the secret. And the community will embrace you with open arms. Thank you.
Thank you. So if we have programs, it also means we have a certain need. So we want to hear these voices. Now the programs are shaped in one way or another, really. The question is more, and now back to all four of you. I heard a whole lot of motivation when you were speaking about your role, about your engagement. I really felt, so there's something intrinsic in you that motivated you to go further. And before I go to ask you how we can leverage that more, what is that motivation? What made you choose, or when you saw there was a program, what made you choose, let me contribute to that program actively? What was your intrinsic motivation, really? Do you want to start, Aurora?
Sure. For me, I think it's about the values of the company or the organization that I would want to apply for. I think that's my first priority. And then, well, in my case, for UNDP, it was I always wanted to work for an international organization. I had previous work experience before in the public sector, in the private sector, with NGOs, but never with an international organization. So I think the organization itself also made me apply to the program, which aligned perfectly with my values of protecting the environment and creating a more sustainable future.
So you are on a mission.
On a mission, a life mission.
That's great.
Yes.
Fantastic. Tino.
Okay, so on my part, well, in Zimbabwe, like what I was saying, when the world defines access to electricity as just having maybe 4 hours of electricity. So coming from a rural background where I come from, well, we actually have solars to charge our phones and our radios and stuff. but then we can't really say that we have access to electricity. So growing up in that type of environment and actually seeing that the world thinks that we have energy, yeah, I saw it important that I actually go out there. When this program showed up, I thought it important that I actually go out there and help in conscientizing the world that this is not enough electricity. Yeah, we need to have enough electricity. It's not just having 4 hours of electricity. That doesn't mean anything when it comes to access to electricity.
Oh wow! But would you say that to have young people being engaged in a program that like we have, somehow they need to feel a need for change. They need to feel there's something that needs to be done, and that's why I'm investing myself into something. Is that what you would how you would describe it? You felt that need?
Yeah, I felt that need, that I actually have to go out there and make the world know. Because coming here, like last night I was going around the city and you see all those buildings, flashing lights and all that. I was like, that's wasting energy.
Right.
Because in my country, it's actually valuable. Like, just getting the lights, because there's a lot of load shedding right now. So having access to electricity is gold in my country. Yeah, so yeah, I actually feel that need, that the world needs to know that every other country out there needs enough electricity. Yeah, not just that small amount like that is defined by the world currently.
Okay. Very good. And the program that you're in allows you to give that voice. So you are here as a ISO Environmental Management Youth Leader.
Yeah. So we'll actually, after this, we'll be presenting on the equity and justice transition. So yeah, we will be delving more into what I'm talking about in that presentation.
Shraddha, I think the story from Tino just resounds quite well with your work, really, right? We were talking about including not only young people, but also people who have an infrastructure that is not the same that other people have. So what's your mission, what's your motivation, and what's your story?
Thanks, Boris. Indeed, Tino's story does resonate very deeply and very closely, but from a slightly different perspective. As in, I approached this problem because I saw the situation in the rural households, because my family belonged from one, and I saw the women cooking on the open pit stoves, which are still quite common in India. And that was something that stood out for me as a problem, because it was women who cooked. It was the 5-year-old and under 5-year-old children who stayed with the women while they were cooking, so they were inhaling the smoke. And nobody exactly saw that as a problem, because their grandparents had been doing it, their parents had been doing it, and so now their wife and their daughters are doing it. And that was something that I wanted to change, and that was something I needed the community to understand, that that is indeed a problem, because for them it was a way of life, and that was not what was healthy for them, that was not what was safe for their children, and that was something that I wanted to and I needed to change. Which is why when I was undergoing the program, starting out with the community, I had no idea what to do about it. So initially, most of the time, it was just talking to the communities and helping them understand that it's not beneficial for them to continue using the practices. Sometimes even when they could afford the change, they would not. Because why choose to adopt a new standard when you already have an old existing one, right? Yeah. So it was to help the communities understand that there is something new, there is something better, and you can afford that, so maybe you should try it sometime. And behavior change is one of the hardest of practices that you can sort of try to encourage or motivate someone else to adopt. And one thing that I realized during this time was that there are various organizations who are willing to help. So for example, the Regeneration Future Leaders program, which I'm a part of, they gave us training about how to talk to communities, how to gather data, how to understand what their actual needs are, because they might be saying that they want a better life, but essentially it would not translate into practice, because the activities that they were doing would not lead to it, because they weren't able to see the long-term harm that was caused to their health. So that was something that they wanted to connect us with. And this was something that was intrinsically driving me and motivating me to do better, to be better. So every day is a learning curve. Every conversation actually is helps me understand, talking, listening to Tino, listening to Ellie, listening to Aurora. It's helping me learn and helping me realize how there are many ways to approach solutions to a problem. And most often than not, talking to other people around you, they can help. They can help maybe even with a conversation, an idea. So yeah, that is something that I'm doing.
And do you remember? So you were describing the need very well, and then how you embarked in that new program. But do you remember the moment where something in your brain went click, and you thought, I really want to do something about it?
Yes, I think it was post my higher education, because in India, at least, the culture is you either study medicine or engineering, like as mainstream career options. And that was definitely an option for me. I had been studying really well, so bright student, everybody expected me to do that. And somewhere close to my 12th grade, which is like the secondary school right before you choose college, I decided that that is not really what I want to do. And because these are the kind of ideas that I want to change, I want to embark on this journey, which was a new unknown for everybody. I decided to pursue law and policy and go from a perspective where legal policy, legal governance, analysis, all of that is starting to change the world. And then I studied law and realized somewhere there that in addition to the policies that exist, grassroots action and local community action is very important, and that is sometimes forgotten in conversations like these. And bridging that grassroots action is what I want to do. While I completely believe and support the idea of policy discussions, policy analysis, and conversations like the one that we're having here, but until and unless it translates into grassroots action at the community level, we're not helping anybody. And that is what I want to do.
And how to connect them? How to connect the policy level with the grassroots?
Exactly, that is what youth leaders like us are doing, and that's what we want to do. Support in projects and programs where we're trying to help the grassroots communities understand these ideas, understand these concepts, and change their way of life for the better. That is one of the ways. So one of the major challenges that comes up with us is, number one, trust building, because it takes a long time for you to, like, if Wolfram walks into a room, you would tend to trust him automatically. The same thing would not come from me. I would have to build that up. Yes, go on. You get it? That one. And the next thing is, for example, nobody wants to take a chance on something really new. They want you to have like an existing plan of action, like you should have been functioning for 5 years, 3 years, only after that I will trust you to do more. And I say, if you do not trust me the first time to take community action, when I've done it for a small community, I've helped them transition, then for a long term, there's not really much I can do because I'm stuck in a circle. You won't trust me to support me the first time, I won't be able to, then after 3 years, I need to show something about it. So that is something that I'm trying to bridge, and that is one of the main reasons why I'm here at the COP, to understand how to build that community, how to take these discussions from there to here, help the communities here understand that the problems that are being faced by grassroots levels are very different. And it is very important for us to have that conversation, and that is what I think all of us are here to do, and this panel and this opportunity to discuss that is a great place.
Oh, fantastic. There's a lot to follow up on that, but let's turn to Ellie first a little bit. Ellie, you were mentioning smart cities,
Yes.
and we heard Wolfram talk. What's happening?
Can you pull up the mic a little bit?
Oh, okay.
I went.
So you were mentioning smart cities. Does it work?
Yes.
Okay. You were mentioning smart cities. I said that for the third time, but at some point we'll move on from there. And Wolfram was mentioning digitization. And I think, smart cities, digital technology, that sounds somehow appealing. That sounds interesting. That is somehow new. Technology is very broad. Wolfram was mentioning wind turbines. Do you think there are also topics that are a little bit more interesting than others, and topics that are more attracting youth or new like young engineers more than others? Is that a problem? Or how can we have more young people contributing to expert rounds in, for instance, standard development? Or is that the wrong question?
Well, to answer that question, I would say attending the Young Professional Program really allowed me to ask questions directly to experts at the program. And then, you exchange name cards and you can do follow-up if you have more questions. So definitely attending those sort of programs help the youth to get connected to experts. But the technology part, what I have, I have high interest in technologies, but the one thing that I don't like about the technology that we have right now is that we're just considering how to advance technology on, and that's what we're focusing. But I feel like the way that because like we're heavily driven by technologies these days, because we can't really, take off our hands off from our phones and stuff. Technology really sort of secretly manipulates the way that we act, and I feel like if we can advance technology, not the efficiency part, but so that it changes our actions. If we focus on that part, then I'm sure there will be a lot of changes regarding the climate change or climate action. It could be part of climate action, and also just as a citizen of a country, whenever I do recycling, I'm I have to really think through this process, and I don't like it because I have other things to think, and I always want to, have a maybe automated recycling machine that I could just throw waste in, and they could do recycling for me and stuff. So it changes my action and changes the behavior of me. I'm just doing recycling, and it does it for me if that technology allows me to do it. And sometimes if you have a used laptop, then you have to dispose it, and I want to dispose it sustainably. But sometimes you have to Google search to do that. Why is it so hard to buy something, but why is it so hard to dispose? That's a question always remains in back of my head. And as a city planner, I have to consider those factors, because waste management is really important for climate action, for sure.
And what was your click moment where you said, oh, there's a young professional program, I want to be part of that?
Well, first of all, that there was a program that really clicked me. I was like, oh, there's a program for young professionals I should definitely attend. And second of all, I always had high interest in standards, because standards also can change the people's actions as they're leaving. So I'm currently in the systems committee of smart cities, and doing collaborations in the working groups and stuff. So when I found out about the program, I was like, I should definitely attend it, because probably through the program I can understand standards better. I can meet young professionals at the program as well, and many other reasons.
Excellent. Tino, something that I've heard one day was, for human beings to change, they need to feel uncomfortable enough that change is the only way out. Now, we've heard the different stories from the panelists here. Somehow they all came up to a point where they thought, oh, I want to change something, there is a need, but it is somehow a little bit of it comes from discomfort. And discomfort as a motivator to say, now I want to change something. Now, based on your story, do you think that this is true, as a hypothesis? And what would you tell other young people that are in your situation or in different situation? What do you tell them to have that click moment and to be active and engaged?
Okay. Yeah, what they're saying, it's very true. It's very true that there comes a point where you just think, I have to do this. But what's a challenge mostly in most countries is that maybe you may have it in your subconscious mind, but that opportunity or that exposure to actually be engaged in something meaningful where you can contribute, that's what's limited. So I would actually advise anyone that if they get that opportunity, they should just go for it, because it may never come your way again. So you should never hesitate or anything. Just go for it if it speaks to you.
But it's difficult to just go for it sometimes. I mean, we're sitting on a panel, we have all that light just shining in our face here. There is a little bit of a discomfort just being here as well, but at the same time, we want to be here and we want to contribute, and we want our voices to be heard. So how to overcome that moment of hesitation, of anxiety maybe, and just think, let's do it?
Okay. So me, I'm still in school. I'm an undergrad student at Baron University. So I think the I used to be quite anxious speaking in front of people and all that, but it just got into me by doing presentations, class presentations and all that. So I developed confidence, and yeah, I think it actually helps to actually just with your friends or whatever, you can just practice speaking, public speaking. You can just practice speaking to even your friends and all that, just to gain that bit of confidence from you. And it also helps if you get like the support of your parents, your peers, just that support. It actually helps you to feel that self-confident that yeah, I can do this.
Oh, great. Aurora, you've been engaged in many youth projects, and I'm sure you've faced people, peers, people around your age then and now saying, why do you even do this? You know, and you probably will tell them, well, because I have, you know, I'm on that mission. I feel that fire in me. I want to change something. How can you pass that on to someone else, or how did you already pass that on to someone else and engage people to come in and join your way?
Yeah, that's a great question. But yeah, how did I convince people to come along this journey? I think first, and also maybe connecting a few of the discussions that were held before. I think having some models, some role models really helps in general at any level. And also you were asking earlier about how do we make these programs more attractive, because it's, you know, senior people, male dominated, so how do we make it more attractive? So I think first thing is about trying to make the first step to make it attractive with try to make this discomfort have a bit of diversity with maybe just even one person that would change the business as usual. And then from that, I think it's like a river. Like you start with a drop, but then more drops will get together, because once you have one person that can really give the example, it's easier for other people to say, oh, you know, yeah, I want to do that. I really like that. This seems cool. And I think what I've seen in my experience, also in my job, is that sometimes people, and also young people, don't act just because of lack, or maybe don't apply to some programs, but just because of lack of knowledge. They don't even know that, oh, actually this program exists. Actually, yes, I'm youth, but actually I can also be a leader. I can also be very active. So, and I think it really helped me to see around me, when I was younger, people that were very, very active, young people that were leaders. They were pushing for their ideas, and they were really some examples for others. So I think having these role models for young people is really useful to continue with onboarding more people and bringing it forward.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Ellie?
Yes.
Did you have any role models? Did you see someone where you thought, oh, this person is there, I want to do the same? Or did it work differently?
I think I can't really specifically say this. He or she was my role model, definitely. But I think there was like mixture of like, oh, I want to follow their steps. I want to do something like what he did or she did. I had that, but then I can't really specifically name that person out right now. But then I want to say that the YP program, the IEC YP program, I thought it was just going to end after the program ended, but then the organizers are following up with YPs continuously, not just to attend something amazing like this, but to continuously, so that young professionals can continuously contribute their thoughts. And so I thought that was really neat of what the YP program. So yeah, I didn't know that before I attended the YP program, but that's something that I want to, sort of like share, because like if you attend, it's not just going to end there, but it will continue. It will, like, it's like an opening door for you. Mm-hmm. So it's really important. Like, let's say like I didn't have a click to apply for the YP program. But still I applied and I still got to participate in. that's not the end of it. So like that's just the start point of it. So I think it's really important for people to just like sort of take the action and participate if there are programs like that, because it's an amazing opportunity. I didn't realize that before I applied. I am a very passionate person about climate change, or even like cities and people and transportation and all that. And after I applied the program, I thought, it was going to be something different. But afterwards, I was like, oh, there are other opportunities after attending the YP program. So I think that's a neat part of it.
So it sounds for me, it's a lot about empowerment, it's a lot about opportunities, but I also somehow get the feeling that you also want to have an impact, right? So, Shraddha, the impact part, do you see, how important is that for you? Because I think you invest your time, you invest your energy into something, you want to see that it works, you want to see that it actually has an impact. Do you see that impact happen?
Absolutely, absolutely. When you see the life of people change for better, mind you, and when you see that happen, even at a minuscule scale, I mean, household air pollution, indoor air pollution, that is very insignificant when you count about it as one household in one rural village somewhere. But for that house, that impact is immense. And when you calculate it completely, indoor air pollution almost is about 1.5% of the emissions. If you count all the air pollution that is caused because of cooking, and cooking on open pit stoves, or cooking using firewood and cow dung cakes, which are used as the main source of fuel. So all of that continuously comes to about 2.5%, 2%-ish, somewhere around there. And all of that, when you're trying to make a change where you're reducing even a small minuscule part of it, that gives you the feeling that you're contributing to a bigger purpose, a purpose that is better and that is beneficial for the entire world, not solely for yourself. And that is the impact that keeps you going, because some days they can be very exhausting when you're constantly hearing rejections everywhere, and you're constantly hearing people telling you that this is not going to work, this is on such a small scale, and people telling you that this is not something that they want to support or they want to be a part of because it's not been existing for, say, 15 years. Like, why weren't you here since the past 15 years? Because we started it now. And you hear that, it takes you down, it makes you feel low. But when you see that impact, when you see a household, when you see a woman coming up to you and saying, my children are feeling better, my health is becoming better because of something that you did, that is what gives you a feeling of warmth, and that keeps you going. And that is essentially why it is very important for me to continue this work. Sometimes it can be slow, but it's to never stop.
Excellent. I think, so, listening to the panel, we've been reducing it to youth because it's Youth Day today. There are so many different issues that we've touched upon. There is developed world, not developed, or lesser developed world. There is the gender issue that goes with clean cooking, because clean cooking specifically affects women and very young children. So, and you were talking about the greater purpose. It is important, I think, to really understand that even though it's Youth Day, we have to be inclusive in many, many different ways, and that's certainly just came out as being part of the discussion here, which I think is very important and beautiful. I'm turning to you, Wolfram. Having young people, or many different people with many different backgrounds, many different voices, impact our work. How can we do that? How can we improve that?
So, let me start with going off script a little bit, because
I did that minutes ago.
there were a couple of very excellent contributions, and they hit the point, and that brings it back to your question. Let's focus on two aspects. When you start engaging in programs, in work inside these programs, in work these programs introduce you to, you start getting a view from inside out rather than from outside in. And at that point in time, you will realize that there are many, many more opportunities to do something which is exactly around your alley, exactly around your way, which you never thought about before. So there is plenty of opportunities. We are talking here mainly about climate. We are talking about youth. I'm blessed with the fact that I'm responsible for two of the CA systems in IEC, where climate is really at the core and center, particularly the IECRE, that's the Conformity Assessment System for Renewable Energy Systems. We are talking about wind energy, solar energy, and marine energy. However, all these things, a wind turbine, a PV farm, a marine converter, they only work with very, very traditional electrotechnical components. This brings us to IECE, where most of these components, starting from PV inverter, from PV panels, and all the connection material, fuses, switchgear, is certified. A lot of people don't think about all the possibilities to do good and to do improvements in the periphery of things. And to come back to the use, Ellie said something very important, and that being part of the program and getting towards the end of the official part of the program, she realized that there's a huge opportunity to stay connected. And that's what I said earlier. Stay connected and push for it. And you will realize you don't need to push a lot because the doors are open. We suffer from the actually lack of contribution afterwards. We have these wonderful programs, we introduce the youth, but every year, every cohort of young professionals, we only get a very limited number of experts back who stay connected. However, we have an excellent track record. TC114, that's the marine energy TC in IEC. The chair of that, since meanwhile, I think 8 or 9 years, is a former young professional. One of the major, and he is also in IECRE, the sector leader for marine energy. We have, from a very, very big conformity assessment body, the head of product certification, which comes from the young professional program. And this continues and continues. And I can only say, trust me, even I'm another vintage than you are, trust me, if you really just slightly knock the door and ask after these programs, can we stay engaged? Nobody will say no. So this is really the important thing. There is a chance, there is opportunity, and there are many more opportunities just based on different technologies and based on different corners, which you might not have thought of in the very first beginning.
And is there anything that we can do better?
Yes, we can try to better leverage the network we have with the young professionals, because this first step of staying engaged, there's always a threshold to overcome. And if we can lower that threshold, being more inviting, that might be helpful. With some personalities, you don't need to have that, but particularly with a lot of young people, this first step getting into the community, that's where we probably could look at and try to improve.
So building trust is really something that came out of that panel in many different ways. It is building trust towards different communities, different age groups, towards different let's say wealth of expertise and experience. And something that you mentioned a little bit earlier, Shraddha, it's also, because it's the Finance COP, most of our actions and activities have always a price tag. And specifically, if even a project is new, let's not talk about the youth of the project developer, just a project is new, it's harder, it seems, to get trust from the finance people, because, as you said, you haven't been doing something for 10 years, and therefore, it's a given that you will be getting funded for that. So, because it's Finance COP, how can we make sure that we build trust in investment as well? What would need to change?
I think one thing that I've realized during this Finance COP and during the discussions that I've had is you need to get your impact numbers very sorted and very structured for a person to have a conversation with you further and believe them. And that is not something that can come very easily in communities where this has never been done before. So that is something that it starts with, and that is something that I'm essentially trying to build slowly, bit by bit. And having a conversation like these, sort of, for example, where I've met you, Boris, I've met Wolf, I've met Ellie, I've met Aurora, I've met... So when you meet all of us and you see all of us, then that level of trust or that level of understanding is slightly a little higher than conversations where I've just written a cold email to say, hey Boris, listen, this is an idea, I'm working on this, could you please support me, or could you please connect me to people? So even if you're not directly able to contribute, but in such situations, even a small connection, like a small knock, right? Exactly like how you described, a small knock for maybe not financial support, but connection to the people who can, that goes a long way. But a question that comes out of it is, how do you do that? And it's not very easy to do that. And Wolf talked about lowering the threshold a little bit. I think it also has to come from a place for young people to understand how to have the first conversation. And that is something that I'm also learning, I'm struggling with. And to have that conversation, to tell them that, hey, this is something that I want your support with, and could you please help me out? And that it feels very, there's a lot of hesitation around it. And maybe that is because there's no structured approach. So there's no like SOP that I can follow and be like, there's a standard operating procedure, I will follow this. First I will say hello, then I will say the next sentence. It doesn't exist. So maybe like a little bit of structure during these conversations like these, that you tell them that, hey, maybe start off with this idea first and then pitch this and then let me know. I think those conversations go a really long way. So I would really, yeah.
Can I add?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So I feel like that's a very good point.
Microphone.
I'm having trouble with microphone all day today. I was actually having a trouble with microphone at the IEC Young Professional Program too. But thanks for pointing that out. But I want to talk about like the stakeholders, like the public stakeholders, because like smart cities is all about connecting stakeholders. How do you work with different departments? And different departments, they have their own point and they don't want to agree to each other, and they're just like fighting, and nothing happens. But like the South Korean example would be the government really took step, and they were like, departments, listen, we gotta work together, and they did that for a few years. So like I think it took like maybe 2 or 3 years. It just didn't happen for one step, but they were doing it for a few times, and the departments finally started to listen to each other. And because like Smart City is database, and they have to share data and information and things like that, and for that to happen efficiently, you guys have to work together, otherwise we're just going to be stuck here forever. So like someone has to like really step in and like make that happen.
Excellent. Tino, from your perspective, what would be helpful for any organization to build more trust for people like you, or people your peers, to be engaged?
Okay. Well, I think it just resonates with what they've been saying, that there needs to be like that avenue that is clearly defined for us to actually follow, so that we don't feel that like we are being left outside. Like we need to be assured that it's free for us to just come in and then engage people, and we need to feel that we can get appreciated, or we can get assistance, and we are not going to be shut out.
Excellent. So inclusion is very important, but inclusion and impact, I think that'd be important as well, just being part of the discussion without seeing that the contribution actually contributes or helps the discussion. I think the framework would be here as well, right? Or should be here as well, that the contribution can be impactful. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, because if you are to look at it like, whoa, what she has been saying, like, where like there's some kind of resistance where they're saying you haven't been doing this for, it's still new and all that. And you see, so when what they were referring to as being old, they forget that at some time that project was a new project, and it got funding, it got support. So what we need to do right now is just support these youths and maybe follow up to make sure that they deliver. Yeah, that's the important part. The initiation and then following up to make sure that what that person was proposing, they're actually following up on it and delivering what they proposed.
Fantastic. Now, we are already at the closing round, and exactly in the closing round, and instead of producing some sort of call to action, I would rather give each of you, the opportunity to address COP29 and tell what you always wanted to tell all the attendees of COP29. What would it be?
Okay. Well, since this is a finance COP, I know the developing countries are all looking towards the developed countries for finance and all that, where they're talking about where they're talking about the developed countries have to fund the developing countries to transition to cleaner energies and all that. But what I would want to say to this developing world, the developing countries, is that we just don't have to wait for funding from developed countries, but we actually have to come up with initiatives which can then be funded. Like, for example, in my country right now, there's this geopulmonary waste management where they are managing a landfill. So what they are doing there is they're actually looking into producing energy from that waste. So I say that's an initiative that is coming from a developing country, and if that project gets funding, then I'm sure it can actually grow into managing waste for, I don't know, the whole country or even the continent. So yeah, I feel like as much as we are looking towards the developed countries to fund, we actually have to come up with initiatives with funding.
Okay. Excellent. Ellie, your message to COP29?
Yes, funding is very important, but I always wanted to say this. As I said before, you gotta think about that question that I said. It's so easy to buy, but why is it so difficult to dispose? And I think that shouldn't be the way. The input and the output should be, at some balance for the waste management to happen efficiently. So think about that. And innovation is, it's important, but it's not always the solution. And thinking about changing policies or even updating guidelines could really impact climate action. So not just focus on innovations, but think about other aspects as well. That's what I want to say.
Very good. Aurora?
Yeah, I like that. Think about other aspects. I think sometimes we focus on, and also talking maybe about standard, we only focus on one indicator, which in this case is CO2 emission. But then there are so many other impacts that we forget to look at: social impact, environmental impact, etc., etc., etc. But my message that you asked, I think it's to remind everyone that. This problem that we are seeing now, which is we call climate change, will affect us all, no matter if we are developing, rich, poor. It doesn't matter. It will be the same, or well, not the same, unfortunately, but it will affect everyone. So I think my call to action is really try to collaborate, try to act for the same cause without looking only at the personal interest.
Very good. Shraddha?
Thanks, Boris. I think my address to the COP would be to create a win-win situation where what is beneficial for the environment has to be beneficial for the communities living in this environment as well. And if we can create a balance and strike a sense of harmony where we have a dual benefit approach, where we are benefiting the environment while also benefiting the communities and helping the communities understand how they're getting that benefit, I think it can go a long way starting from here. So, yeah.
That is fantastic. I will end here. Thank you very much for sharing your energy, for sharing your motivation. I think it was a wonderful session. We can really draw a lot on your point of view and the motivation that you bring to that table. Thank you very much for participating. It's been great, and we'll end the session here. Thank you very much. Have a great day.